Today is my last day of parental leave. It's my last Sunday of my break, the time I have off before on Monday I go back to work full time while also kind of being the stay-at-home parent. Big days like this can be anxiety provoking, they can create nervous energy in your life, but they don't have to. I'm something of an expert on change. I've moved from Philadelphia to New Mexico, back to New Jersey, then back to New Mexico, each time packing up all of our belongings into a U-Haul and driving it across the country with my wife. I've made that flight many more times than that. We've adopted 2 dogs, we've had to say goodbye to one, we had a baby recently. And so through all of that change, I've learned a few tips and tricks about how to cope with change and mitigate the anxiety. So as you prepare for any big change in your life, and as I prepare for this big change that's happening tomorrow morning, here are the 4 strategies I'm using to prepare for change. The first thing I like to do when I'm faced with any big change in my life is to stick to my routine as much as possible. Anxiety around change is often centered on the unknown. It's the things about our new job, our new living situation, whatever it is we're going into that we don't know, that we can't control. So we feel that lack of control and we feel anxious about it. So in order to mitigate it, control everything that you can. Control all the parts of your life except that one change. And even if it's a big change, this will help you feel a lot of stability. For example, as I prepare to go back to work tomorrow, I'm not making any major changes to my Sunday. In fact, it's pretty much how I would spend any other weekend day. Woke up early, got a workout in, spent some time with baby and my wife, made food, got my wife to work, ate dinner at the same time I always do, and then engaged in some creative activity. In fact, the only thing I'm doing different is a little bit of extra work to get prepared for my time back. If you can keep your routine the same, you can tell your body that not everything is changing, and it'll help you regulate your emotions much more effectively. The second thing I do when I'm preparing for any big change in my life is to visualize that change. Of course, this isn't always the easiest to do. One of the big changes that I've faced is switching jobs. It was the first time I had ever done it. It was in my first workplace for about 2.5 years before changing to a new one. And I didn't know exactly what the day-to-day at my new job was going to look like. But as much as possible, you can read the job description, you can potentially talk to new coworkers, gain an understanding of what your day-to-day will look like so you can put yourself in that space. And that's something I'm using right now, definitely, as I prepare to go back to work. This will actually be my first time working while staying at home with our baby full time. My wife took her leave first, and then we had some family help for a few weeks. Then I took my leave. So now she's about 3 months old. And it's just going to be me and her for a lot of the day while my wife is out at work. And so instead of anxiety around when I'm going to get my work done or how exactly my schedule is going to look, I visualize myself in that place. We are hiring a babysitter for a few hours a day while I have meetings and things like that to help out. So I visualize exactly what that's going to look like, what I'm going to do in that time. And then I've also thought about what my schedule will look like with baby, when I'll get my work done, when she'll need to eat, when she'll need to nap, as a way to prepare for these first few weeks of going back to work. And as I've done that, that's mitigated any potential nervousness I've had, because my one biggest fear was that I wouldn't be able to be as effective at my job. I wouldn't be able to get all of my work done like I did before. But once I started to see what the schedule was going to look like, that she kind of does a lot of independent play, that she plays in her swing, all of those types of things, I realized I would have much more time than I thought, and plenty of time throughout my day to get all of my work done. So whether the change is a new job, a new schedule, a new living situation, a new city, put yourself in that place as much as possible. Do the research to see what it's actually going to look like, and then imagine yourself there. And the third step is something that can mentally help you cope with change, especially when it's something you're not necessarily looking forward to, and that's to focus on the why. When I was transitioning from my first job to my second, I was a little bit nervous and honestly a little bit sad. I liked the people I worked with, I liked my coworkers, but when I focused on the why, all of those things melted away. The why was lifestyle. I was working overnight at my first job, and though it was remote, 9:30 p.m. to 6 a.m. is just a tough schedule. Added to that, I had daily responsibilities and deadlines, and so any day of coverage needed to be approved and covered by somebody on a designated team. That meant that whenever I put in a vacation request, I often had to work 1 or 2 nights in the middle of the week, completely messing up my schedule and the trip that we were trying to take. So there were a lot of reasons to switch. Once I realized that those were the reasons that drove me to switch in the first place, I knew my new job would be better. It would be a better situation than where I was. Fortunately, that proved completely true. My new job was much better, and I've enjoyed it way more than I did my first job since then. So just kind of trusting and focusing on the why helped me to make that transition and ease the anxiety heading into a new job that did prove to be much better. So as I transition back to work and being a full-time parent, I'm reminded that I could put our daughter in daycare and just work through the day, or that I could go into in-person work and have to put her in daycare. But instead, I am blessed with the opportunity to be able to be at home with her while also doing my job. And that's something not a lot of people get. So the why of balancing the schedules and making all of this busyness work out is because I get to be at home with my daughter while completing my responsibilities at my job. And that is an incredible opportunity. So there's got to be a why. If something's changing in your life, there's a reason for it, especially if it's a change you know about or you've chosen to make. So focus on the why, remind yourself why you're doing it, and know that it will work out. And that leads us to the fourth and final thing I do whenever I'm faced with a big change. And that's trusting that everything will be okay, that everything will work out. Think back on all the times you've had a change in your life. When has it actually not worked out? When has it played out like the worst case scenario that you imagined in your mind? I'm going to guess very few. And I think that's because we tend to make choices that we know in our gut are right, even if our mind tries to convince us otherwise later. And if they're not right, or they're not what we thought they were, we still as humans have that survival mechanism that helps us make the best out of it and make the most out of the situation. So if you're struggling with a change, or you don't know what your life's going to look like, just trust that it'll work out. The first few weeks especially might be hard. Learning the ropes of a new job is not an easy feat. It always takes a few weeks. Whenever we've moved into a new home, it's felt unfamiliar. And the first few days waking up, you feel like you're in the old home for just the first few seconds, and it's disorienting. But after just a few weeks, you get used to the place. Once you're in a new city, it's the same effect. In a new job, same thing. So though it's weird to be out of work for a couple weeks and then going back and thinking about getting back into my job and all the time that's passed since I've been out, I know within a few days, I'll be right back in the routine just as I was before. So I just trust that it's going to work out, because it almost always has. And in those rare cases when it doesn't work out, when you try something, when you change something and it fails, it's still not a bad thing, because ultimately you've learned something about yourself. You had a reason for wanting to try something new, for wanting to change. You followed your gut, you followed your heart. It didn't work out, but you learned which direction to go. So I don't know, just try it. It'll probably work out. So I am saying this in pretty much real time. It is 7 p.m. on Sunday. I go back to work tomorrow, and I've prepared everything. I've got my clothes out like I always do the night before. I've got my schedule all together. I've gotten the week planned out in my planner like I always do. Everything is exactly in order, exactly what I would always do it. And instead of waking up tomorrow filled with any sort of anxiety or nervousness about going to work, I'm going to follow the same routine I have been. I'm going to wake up early. I'm going to get a workout in, spend some time with my daughter, and then log on for the workday right about when I normally would. And that's all there is to it. I know that I've prepared as much as I can, keeping everything a routine, keeping everything in control as best I can. There's one big change in my life. I may fail at it sometimes. I may have my daughter screaming while I'm trying to be on a Zoom meeting, and need to get grace from my coworkers to be able to handle that situation. It might feel awkward at times. It might be difficult. I might not be as completely locked in from the entire 9-to-5 period as it used to be, but I will still be as good of an employee as I was and be as good of a parent as I can be, because I've taken the steps, I've prepared, I've visualized, and ultimately I just trust that it's going to work out, because I know that I can make it work out.